Ready? Good afternoon. My name is John Payne, and I'm the chair of the Draft Bermuda Plan 2018 Tribunal. Along with me for this matter is Carlos Amaral and Jonathan Starling. Jennifer Howard has a conflict and has recused herself from this particular issue. Today we will be using Cisco WebEx, and we're open to the public via YouTube. Present today for this matter, which is FWD 0227-19, is Agent Christine Rickards, and for the Department of Planning is Julia Marshall. Objectors have been, there have been no objectors for this one. No counter objectors. So, Ms. Rickards, can you proceed?
Sorry, Christine. Me? Good afternoon. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so apologies for Mr. Dodwell. He meant to join us today, but he is unwell. I think that the tribunal has a copy of our rebuttal report, as well as our original report for this site, 1 and 3 Rock Sound Road, Southampton, on behalf of the Reefs Hotel. I'd like to just make a few points from our rebuttal case. It remains valid along with our original case to rezone both sites from residential to tourism. These sites contain detached homes and are used as hotel keys for the Reefs Hotel and have been since 1981. The rezoning is being sought to support future use opportunities and facilitate and support new hotel-related development when needed. A tourism zoning would reflect the existing and long-term intended use of these sites. Specifically, in response to the department's position report, we'd like to reiterate that the background study for the draft plan, the Bermuda Plan Strategy and Review Report 2018, outlines that international business and tourism remain the two pillars of Bermuda's economy, and that Bermuda's tourism has been faced with many challenges over the last 2 decades, resulting in property losses in hotel industry. As it relates to tourism zone land and hotel uses, it is made clear from the report that it is a use under great threat, in that the percentage of tourism land has decreased by 2% since 2001, and only a total of 2% remains as of 2016. In the 2018 plan, 13 tourism properties were zoned either fully or partially to residential zoning to reflect current uses. In total, there's a net loss of 38 acres of tourism zone land in the new plan. The department advises that during the 2017 objection request process, there was a request to rezone 5 areas of the hotel site, including these 2 sites. 3 of those sites were granted approval to be rezoned to tourism, and the department indicates that's 3.1 acres of new tourism zoning, and that they feel that's adequate for the property to operate into the future. I'd just like to make the point that those particular properties, those particular sites are already under hotel use and are essential uses to the property. The 3.1 acres that were rezoned in the 2017 request consist of tennis courts, a water catchment which services the hotel's fresh water requirements, guest parking, back of house operations, and staff housing. These are existing essential hotel uses, which would be far more challenging to cease and redevelop if that were the hotel intention to seek redevelopment on the reef site. Also, in considering sites which may be able to be redeveloped at the reefs, which is already a highly constrained hotel site, access to views is a significant factor. The 2 sites at 1 and 3 Rock Sound are well elevated above the road level at 27 meters and enjoy southern views over the ocean over top of low-scale existing development, while the other sites which were rezoned are generally at road level, facing the main hotel building, access drive, and parking, and they have no views. Contours as well as Google Map views were included in our report for your review. Overall, the residential 2 policies are simply too constraining for hotel use. While residential 2 policies do allow hotel and tourism uses, there are significant restrictions. Tourism uses in residential 2 zones are not even classified as a permitted use. It is a discretionary use. While a structure can be a hotel use, it has to look exactly like a residential 2 style house, including a 24-foot grade to eaves height. It must also comply with all the residential 2 standards, including minimum lot size, maximum site coverage, hard surfacing, minimum setbacks. Very challenging for a hotel to develop within this sort of constrained envelope. And this will greatly limit design and layout options for any hotel future use. I had included in the rebuttal report another example of a tourism site, the Inverary Hotel on Harbor Road, where the department did consider that zoning to be appropriate. It was zoned to residential, and upon reconsideration, it was noted that the rezoning back to tourism, quote, will allow the objection lot to provide for the orderly development, expansion, and upgrading of a range of tourism facilities. We feel that the same principle should apply here to the reefs. In conclusion, there is need for flexibility in zoning to allow future hotel options in both use and development design. Given the ongoing threats to hotel industry, unsupportive land use policies will only further negatively impact hotel business opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Marshall?
Can I make one quick change?
Yeah.
Oh, but it's not confused, because right now it's got my name as the,
Thank you, Chair. You ready?
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julie Marshall. I'm representing the Department of Planning with regard to this objection to 2719. As we've seen, it's with regard to 2 properties that are owned by the Reefs Hotel, located on number 1 and 3 Rock Sound Road. And the request is to rezone the properties from residential 2 to tourism. So just to give a little bit of background, during the informal public consultation phase that the department conducted in preparing this draft plan, a rezoning request was submitted by the Reefs Hotel to rezone 5 areas of the hotel property. The 5 areas were on this left-hand map. One of the areas was the open space reserve area near the entrance to the hotel, and another area was the water catch and livery cycle and staff accommodation site. And another area was the tennis courts, the parking area, and the cottage here. And then the other 2 sites were the current ones that are the subject of the objection. So what we did was we supported the rezoning of 3 of these areas, the open space area and these 2 areas, which we supported to rezone to tourism. The areas we did not support are these 2 lots here, the cottages. And interestingly, the hotel also owns this cottage here, which is also zoned residential too. That I don't believe was the subject of any of the objections. So in total, the department supported the rezoning within this draft plan of 3.1 acres of the Reefs property to tourism. This more than doubled the amount of tourism zoned for the Reefs property. And like I say, the 2 properties that we did not support are zoned residential too. So these photographs here show the areas that we supported the rezoning of. This is the water catch, And this is the cycle livery. This is the roof of the staff accommodation. And this is the northernmost car park. This is the tennis courts, the 2 tennis courts here, and this is the cottage. It is lower lying site. This is an elevation of about 25 metres, but there are, similar to Southdown Farms next door, the residential area there are beautiful views of the Gibbs Hill Lighthouse, and it's a sort of garden setting. So we did consider that there was ample redevelopment opportunity for the hotel to have sort of garden setting, lighthouse view suites on these sites. So the other area that was the subject of an objection from the reefs was submitted as objection 228.
We're not talking about that one at the moment. We're talking about 227, the 2 cottages.
I understand that, Chair, but I just wanted to give a little bit of context to the areas that we have supported, and just
I'm more interested in hearing
that's fine.
Hearing why you have objected more than why you have supported.
I just want to make the point that we have supported a lot of rezoning to tourism. So this was an area we supported from coastal reserve to tourism. So in terms of the 2 objection sites, 1 and 3 Rocksound Road. They're 2 cottages and they're located on 2 separate lots. One lot is 11,500 square feet. That's 3 Rocksound Road, that's at the top. And the other is 1 Rocksound Road, which is about 14,850 square feet. Together they comprise just over half an acre. The cottages have operated successfully as part of the hotel inventory for the last 39 years. They form part of a wider residential 2 zoned area, which has been zoned residential 2 in the 1992 plan and the 2008 plan. There's the previous plans before that. They remain zoned residential 2 in the draft 2018 plan, as we know. And like I said, similarly, this cottage here is zoned residential 2. The cottages are located west of the Reefs property on the opposite side of the road. It's about 200 metres down the road on the South Shore, and access to them is gained through these 2 walled pillars. It's a single lane, 1 car width road, and it is off South Shore Road, and it's immediately opposite the other cottage that is not part of an objection. So the road is quite narrow and steep. It rises from about 26 metres to an elevation of about 30 metres where the first cottage is, and then 34 metres where the second cottage is. So these 2 cottages occupy 2 separate lots, as we said, each having a garden and overlooking the South Shore. They're located within a residential neighbourhood, and there's large houses located in close proximity to the north and west of them. The properties are residential in character, scale and setting. They sit at a higher elevation to the rest of the Reefs property, and they appear distinctly separate from the hotel property. So this one is one Rocksound view, and this is a closer look at it. This is the second cottage, which was recently renovated and repainted. So it looks actually even more separate and distinctive from the hotel. It looks like a private residence now. Previously, this photograph of it was actually pink in colour. So what does a residential 2 zoning allow these properties to do? Well, a residential 2 zoning allows for tourism accommodation. As we've seen, these properties have been in hotel use for 39 years. But what it does is it keeps them to a residential scale. A residential 2 zoning ensures that the design, scale and massing of the buildings are compatible with the character of the development in the surrounding area, and that the residential amenity of the neighbouring area is protected. In a residential 2, a tourism development would be permitted the same minimum lot size, maximum site coverage, minimum setbacks, and hard surface requirements as permitted for an apartment house development. And the maximum density of units, minimum size of units, minimum areas of private outdoor and communal space, and the number of parking spaces would all be discretionary. These are discretionary, flexible matters that the board would have the ability to decide on the limitations for them. So there is some development potential for sure with those parameters. The maximum building height permitted within a residential 2 zone is the maximum height permitted for an apartment building, which is 2 stories plus habitable space in either the attic or the basement. Now, on this particular site, because of its elevation, it would be permitted to have a stepped design which could fit with the contours, providing no elevation exceeds 2 stories. The main issue of concern with the rezoning of these 2 lots to tourism is that there is no maximum building height prescribed in a tourism zoning. So a tourism zone could potentially allow for large-scale buildings to replace these cottages. Even though the scale, height, massing and design of any future development would have to be compatible with the surrounding area, the inference of rezoning these 2 lots to tourism at this point would be that it would seem that the department approved additional building height and thought it was acceptable for this location. So in summary, the department has supported the rezoning of over 3 acres of residential 2 and open space reserve land to tourism at the reefs in preparing the zonings for this development plan. And the department has supported a further rezoning of an area of coastal reserve to tourism in its recommendation for an objection submitted as part of the development plan. No master plan has been submitted by the reefs, so it's hard to know exactly what future plans the hotel has. But the department considers that it has been very supportive in accommodating nearly all of the hotel's rezoning requests to allow for the hotel's expansion. A residential 2 zoning would not hinder any redevelopment plans for these 2 cottages, but it would ensure that the scale of redevelopment remains appropriate for the site conditions and the elevation, and appropriate for their location within a residential neighbourhood. So the department considers that a residential 2 zoning is the most appropriate zoning for these 2 cottages. If I could just add, the objector did also make a point about the Inverary site, which I believe the hotel portion of that site was erroneously redrafted residential in this plan. It has always been tourism, so that was just rectifying a mistake.
Mr. Starling, any comments?
No. No comments from me.
Nothing for myself here. Ms. Ricketts, is there anything else you would like to add? So you muted her?
Oh, do I need to do something?
No, I don't think it's on your side. I think it's on this side.
I'm guessing what I have to do here, request a mute. Try now?
She's still muted.
Huh.
Christine, can I,
It might
Ms.
be-
Ricketts, can I hear from you?
No, okay, let me just see where Mandy's on. Mandy?
Sorry, we have a little bit of a technical issue.
Okay, sorry.
Maybe I just have to turn this on.
I'm not sure how to,
Unmute
Try
somebody.
that.
you want me to try it now?
I'll just turn my presentation off.
Just wait a minute.
Just still.
Oh, there you are. Go back, try to unmute Christine. Oh, sorry.
Do I have to stop sharing it? Yeah, that's what I was. She should.
I know. So Christine, do you know how to unmute yourself?
You want to try disabling
Hello?
the?
Do you need me to mute or unmute?
You're good now.
Okay.
Okay. And after, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, thank you.
Your last opportunity.
I realize.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you need me to leave the meeting? I'm the next case as well.
No, you stay.
Stay.
Yeah,
I'll escort
please.
Julie out and get Matthew, because I think he's the next.
Matthew, Jonathan, we'll get back to
Yes.
you when we start to deliberate, okay?
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm going to go to my other meeting and I'll come back.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Matthew is doing all of the remaining ones.
Yeah, okay. You have an issue?
Sorry?
You having a problem?
I'm just trying to change the name of the presenter from my name to something more general, so that the general public don't get confused and think that I'm the one presenting.
Oh,
But I don't see how to actually change my name. Unless I...
Mandy's gonna move in a minute.
Okay.
I am going to move in a minute, Matthew, sorry. What I might just do
You can- you
is...
can sit on this side. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you sit because.
Never mind, just go ahead. So yeah, when you're... Let me get your presentation. Which one are you again? Well, you're all of those.
Jack was
One, two,
supposed to,
Okay.
Christine, Jack was supposed
Yeah.
to attend, Jack was supposed to attend in person for this one, right?
Is he not outside?
He's not. I'll go and I'll check. And is your client attending
Which one's
via
yours?
WebEx?
1, 2, 3.
He didn't get back to me, so if he didn't respond, I'm assuming not.
Okay, let me go and see.
Sorry, I'm just gonna excuse me, I'm just gonna call Jack. Sorry.
Okay.
If he's not here, we'll proceed.
You just hit share, and then you'll see where the PowerPoint is,
Yeah.
and you hit share in the middle.
Okay.
And then you can come back here and find your next one and do the same
Okay.
thing. Yep, cool.
So it's just
So it's just down here. If you just open the Cisco meeting, share PowerPoint, see what PowerPoint is, yeah?
okay.
And then they'll share the PowerPoint screen only, then you can make that go larger when you're ready, okay?
Hey, Jack, are you heading to the tribunal? Yeah.
You got it?
Hi.
You ready?
Do you want to proceed with this one? Jack was there and the door was locked, so he went back to the office. He'll try to join on WebEx.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, this case is FWD 0123-19. It's regarding reduced agricultural reserve at 25 Jennings Road, Smith Parish. There is a counter objector, which is Bess, And for the department is Matthew Trott. And for the objector is Christine Ricketts. Ms. Ricketts.
Hi, thank you. So in addition,
Sorry, 1 minute before you start, just for the record, Mr. Starlin has left the meeting and Jennifer Howard has joined the panel. Okay, Chris, you can proceed.
okay, thank you. So in addition to presenting rebuttal information for each of our site-specific cases, in cases involving agricultural reserve, we have included in our rebuttal a preamble outlining concerns with the zoning as well as data-related issues. While these are detailed in our rebuttal case, I'd like to state a few key points. One of the items is regarding the arable audits. Having reviewed the tribunal case that was held on October 29th, we were surprised to find that the arable audit scores are still being presented as being directly linked to soil quality. Despite all the work that...
Before you go on, just for the record, because arable audit was mentioned in the original department's position, it can be mentioned, but the panel will
Yes.
put whatever weight it considers on it. And as you may be aware, there has been some discussion between the
Yes.
panel and the department about the use of arable audit. So
Okay, my only concern was, sorry.
Go ahead.
Say again? My only concern was that in those cases, the scores were put into evidence as being directly linked to soil quality. And I know that, obviously on the 14th of August, there was a supplementary policy statement issued, which does indicate that it is not in any way related to soil quality. So I did just want to get into evidence the fact that the audit scores have no relationship to soil quality or cultivation potential, because it seemed to me that evidence was going into the tribunal as a fact. So correct me if I'm wrong on that front, but I did just want to clarify.
The panel is quite aware of the issues around the arable audit, and we have noted the concerns that have been raised prior to the hearings, and we will put what may be deemed necessary, if any, on
So, as long as everybody's on the same page about the methodology and what it means, I'll stand on that part of the submission. So also the policy, supplementary policy statement does indicate that other studies relating to ag lands were carried out. These we have not seen and they're not publicly accessible. So
what are you going to flout this point that I thought was just cleared up? The arable
no, it's not to do.
The arable audit comment, right, has very little standing before this panel.
Correct. I'm not speaking of those, sir. I'm speaking of other studies that are mentioned in the supplementary report.
Okay.
So it does note that other studies were conducted by the planners in July and August of 2018. I'm just indicating that while that's stated, nobody has access to these studies. I just want to make that point. So in terms of trade-offs with respect to agricultural lands, such as in the case at 25 Jennings Road, suggested trade-offs to reduce agricultural lands on site have typically been rejected as having inadequate planning merit. So we're asking the question, how can planning merit be properly tested without understanding the existing suitability and capability of the lands in question and without any vetted, agreed, or articulated planning trade-offs? That's just a question. While we agree that stable, predictable agricultural land base to operate upon is essential for the continued health of the agricultural sector, the agricultural land base is not currently predictable, and maintaining an untested and potentially misleading land base statistic known as total agricultural land is not helpful to the industry or to policy development. Preserving a land base, portions of which will not or cannot sustain agricultural use now or ever, nor produce any agricultural product, does not help to plan for future agricultural industry. With regard to retaining agricultural land for natural aesthetic value, visual buffers within development areas, and the treatment of all unutilized agricultural lands as open spaces, it's our belief that these lands could easily be zoned in other ways to achieve this goal. For the lower classification lands, whenever such classifications have been studied and devised, there would be the possibility to remove the more restrictive zoning and install a form of open space zoning, which might allow some development, but retain and enhance aesthetic values of the remaining lands. If part of the intent is to retain open land, and certain lands are proven to be unsuitable for any agricultural purposes, then a more transparent and potentially less restrictive zoning makes sense. In terms of the specific case-specific points regarding 25 Jennings Road, Smiths, the site is a large residential two-site at 0.72 acres, and it's occupied by a single dwelling house. The lot sits below the elevation of Jennings Road down a drop-off of approximately 2 to 3 meters, which runs along the roadside. The dwelling is located on the south side of the lot, down a steep and narrow access driveway. The agricultural reserve lands are located on the north side of the lot at a lower elevation and separated from the house by a retaining wall. It contains a lawn area, a few mature trees, a small orchard, and a beekeeping area. The agricultural reserve lands total 16,177 square feet. The site, in our view, and in the view of the landowner, is inaccessible to farm equipment given the steep driveway and sloped area along the road frontage. Creating a graded roadway to a private garden area, one which can withstand heavy equipment, is prohibitively expensive and potentially dangerous along the curved portion of Jennings Road, which has poor sight lines. The rezoning request to remove a portion of the ag lands is a total of 5,880 square feet, 36% of the current agricultural zone lands. Despite a policy thrust to retain as much ag land as possible, in some cases it makes no practical or functional sense, particularly if better public good trade-offs can be realized. In terms of direct rebuttal to the department's case, we are asking the question in terms of their characterization of what does high amenity value mean in terms of an agricultural reserve. This is noted in the report, yet no explanation or policy definition exists describing what is meant by high amenity value. These landscaped areas, such as the one found here, are found all across Bermuda in garden areas and represents a typical Bermuda garden. The department's assertion that the land zone agricultural reserve was recently assessed, well, we've been through that point. I won't belabor the point on the scores, but it is directly related to the objective in this particular case. The department has indicated that in the 2017 rezoning request process, this particular parcel was not supported for releasing it to residential use because the land was considered to be of good arable value based on advice from the agricultural officer. We submit that no studies of suitability or capability have been conducted to guide this sort of decision-making. The department advises that the development can fit on the lot without removing any agricultural lands, and that there's approximately 12,689 square feet of unencumbered residential lands that would suffice for additions or freestanding dwelling. Based on the lot layout and existing development and access, we don't see where this new development can be suitably accommodated on the lot. Even without accounting for existing setbacks, the space is highly constrained. Thank you.
Mr. Trump?
This one? All right, so I will just run through the site. So as was mentioned, This is for 25 Jennings Road, and the objection issue was they were proposing to reduce the agricultural reserve. So I will just orient you as to exactly where the site is. Um, in this area, that's Whitney Institute, coming up from Plateau. If you're heading westward, Jennings Road is here on your right, outlined in red. So you can see that it's located within a residential 2 neighborhood. You can see the existing house to the south, and the agricultural reserve occupies a lot of the lot, and it's an irregular shaped size lot. So this is just zoomed in site plan of the site, so you can get an idea of the agricultural reserve. And there's also a garage. That's the smaller building. So this is a 2012 aerial image, which of the site. And this was the proposal which was submitted by the objectors, which shows the area that they would like to reduce. So it's assumed that the development can go over this area here. So these are just some photos of the agricultural reserve. You can see that it's a lawn area with a lot of palms and ornamental trees. There are fruit trees on the site. When the department looks at it, and we talk about amenity value, which is one of the objectives of the agricultural reserve zoning, we're looking at things and just the quality of it. If it's well kept, the beauty of it, the scenic value, those are types of things that we're considering when we say that it has amenity value, which we believe that this site does. It was also mentioned by the objector that farm equipment wouldn't be able to access the site. The department doesn't agree with that. We think that farm equipment would be able to be accessed to the site. We've consulted with DENR and also our building control officers, and they believe that it is possible to for that to happen. It may be even possible for the tractors to go through neighboring properties. So I'll just show you, these are some of the fruit trees within the area. The house is in the background there. So it's a nice lawn. The department, we do acknowledge that the area has a lot of agricultural reserve, but I'll just go back to the site plan. So the area is just next to the house. You can have there are additions there, but that's just what this site has available. It has some space around the house for additions. They do have a garage. They do have an existing house, which is comparable to other houses within the neighborhood. We wouldn't want to reduce it because of it's a good size for possibly growing things. And this is, I'll just go to my last slide. Just summarizing that it goes contrary to our conservation strategy, including our agricultural objectives. There are other areas on the site to build. As was stated earlier, the arable audit, it was given a 4 to 5 for its value. And we just believe that reducing it and putting development there would affect the character of the area. And we don't believe that any points have been put forward that would justify reducing it further.
Can you go back to the slide with had that one?
Yeah.
Am I understanding correctly? And Ms. Ricketts, can you see this? Am I understanding correctly that taking those two drawings,
Yeah.
they want to reduce the size of the ag reserve.
What's in the dotted? What's dotted?
What's dotted?
Yeah.
So they want to take it, and that's on the roadside, closer to the
Right.
roadside,
So the access,
and take it east.
yeah, the access point, one of the access points would be the top left-hand corner, the corner there. Of course, there's also an access point up nearer the main road, middle road.
And how much land are we talking about that they wanted to reduce it by?
They've got 500 and
5,000.
5,861 square feet.
And the other side would be
16,000, about 16,000 square feet.
if a property was if a building was structure was put, say it was granted,
Yeah.
and they put a structure there, what would the objections? What would the difficulty be? Apart from having less farming area.
That's what it would be.
That's the only issue.
It's the we would have less land preserved for growing things, and we'd have less open space, less amenity space.
Ms. Howard, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just had a question for Ms. Rickards, wanting to know, do we have any indication from her client as to beyond the rationale as it relates to the planning points that have been raised, but why her client wants to do this?
To accommodate family, housing for family, have another home on their homestead.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just a question for the department. Would any reduction be acceptable, or is the department's position that any reduction is unacceptable?
Well, we've considered it, and we believe that there isn't a strong reason to reduce it. We've consulted with the agricultural offices. They're in favor of retaining it. And we have to consider what that impact would be on other sites that we're reviewing, where people are proposing to reduce the agricultural reserve. What impact that would have? We have to keep that in mind.
Okay, those are the only questions I have.
I know this particular piece of property had been farmed for many years previously. Now the underlying zoning on this is
Res 2, and then it's got an overlay of the ag.
okay. So it was Res 2 initially, then farmed in the interim. You're saying, or
It's always Res 2 is the underlying zone. So it's always been Res 2.
okay, it's just the agriculture. Okay, no problem. Tommy?
Okay.
Comments? Yeah. And again, to keep in mind that this was a very productive field. I mean, certainly I have been to that field to check it in the past. I don't remember who the last farmer was there. Manga Prayer. Yeah. That's who I kind of thought it was. So it has been used commercially. Even the last picture that you had there, I think it was in 2012, showed the field in production and also bananas around that edge. I don't think the access to that field is any. It may be steep, but I mean, there's a number of very steep areas or roads or paths that go down to a number of fields that I travel on a weekly basis. I don't think this is going to be any different from there. It also depends on what kind of production the person who might want to do. I mean, that whole place could be a banana patch where you don't need a tractor to go up and down. It may not be ideal for the landowner to be doing it himself, but there are many smaller farmers who would love to get a piece of land that size to grow. And I think it is important to have these parcels of land that still remain whether they're in production or if they're not, at least they're in reserve, because it may not suit the landowner now, but the next person that buys that property or the family member generation or 2 generations down the line would have loved to have a piece of farm or may require a piece of farm to land to farm. And so because it's a good quality ag piece, I don't see any justification for removing it. One of the arguments was that, if the gentleman is successful, he would embark on a conservation management program to plant out an orchard. He could do that right now, or he could fill that out right now if he wants to. He doesn't have to wait for this. Again, I don't see any justification for removing it, except for you're removing it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, gentlemen, thank you. And we will move to the next case. The next case is FWD 0016-19, and this has the objectors Mr. and Mrs. Mark and Kim Daniels. Mr.
16.
FWD 0016-19. So, Ms. Ricketts is part of this?
Yes.
So, Ms. Oh,
Mr. and Mrs. Daniels are.
Good afternoon, all.
is anybody calling me? Anybody calling the Daniels? Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Thank
Hello,
you.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Okay.
Now if you click on the meeting. And then go share. Well, you can stop. So that's what you did. Sorry, we're just checking.
Are you ready, Mr. Daniels, Mr. and Mrs. Daniels?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good. We can hear you. You can hear us clearly. I take
A
it.
little low, but we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. We're now dealing with FWD 0016-19 and is rezoned part of the Coastal Reserve to tourism of 16 Sinky Bay Road, Southampton. Presenting is, for the objector is Mr. and Mrs. Kim Daniels, and for the department is Matthew Trott, along with Peter Drew from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Mr. Daniels, or Mrs. Daniels, the floor is now yours.
Certainly. All right, well, hopefully you received the documentation that's been filed, put forward. Effectively, you'll appreciate that we have a sizable piece of coastal reserve land. We have filed an application for planning permission to develop what we had termed to be an existing structure, which the department had termed to be a ruin. I appreciate that there's been a, change in circumstances in that we received support from an independent inspector. I think it's been forwarded to forward planning, so everyone's aware. But effectively, what we are looking for is just consistency. When we look at the zoning in summary, you'll see that the property that is situated to the immediate east, which has a existing structure, has been specifically carved out to fall within the tourism zoning line as opposed to the coastal reserve line. And we were just asking for the same consideration to be extended, having regard to, the summary as to the reasons why this has been denied. Obviously, the Bermuda plan speaks for itself, and it will be for final determination. But some of the point in relation to the lot has sufficient development space outside of the coastal reserve for tourism development. But respectfully, I don't see how that makes much of a difference with regard to the area that can be developed, what's been proposed, and as I said before, just looking for consistency with neighborhood in terms of the lines of sight. So that's really what we're just trying to seek a greater understanding with as regards to our proposed plans, because obviously we're looking at future generational development on land that was once traditionally all tourism zoned and has then subsequently been peeled back. And so while there's a submission that says at point number 5, no justifiable reason has been presented which would merit the rezoning of the coastal reserve, we respectfully would disagree. For example, one issue of contention was looking at the development that we have and where you could have a proposed road. The idea of saying that for handicapped persons, that tourism zone property would only be accessible by those who are ably bodied to walk versus those who would be able to have even some stones set out to use a wheelchair to access the property. We respectfully would submit that there is certainly merit in considering consistency between the subdivision lines between what's tourism and what's coastal reserve. And as I said, the entire area to the surrounding east and west follows the same lines. And so the same type of issues that have been cited would warrant consideration. We don't know why our neighbors, when they made a submission, they were given certain concessions with respect to their application for rezoning, but we haven't. So we would just kind of put the onus on the department to, at least in the interest of natural justice, give us an explanation as to why consideration's been made for one versus another. And that's pretty much the position we would put forward at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Trump?
Yeah. Okay. So this is for 16 Sinky Bay Road. I'll just show you exactly where that is. So this is that's the NAFTA site. You come all the way down. It's this lot which is outlined in red here, and the yellow is the tourism zoning. The light blue is the coastal reserve. So you see there's an existing house with some dwellings in it, and there's a road that goes through. There is a structure within the coastal reserve called Crab Hill. I'll zoom in a little bit closer so you can see. So that's Crab Hill right here. So this is just an aerial showing you what it looks like. And what the objectives are proposing was to redevelop the existing building and to improve the structure here at Crab Hill and extend it and use it for tourism development.
Matthew, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how old is that aerial that we're looking at?
This is 2012.
Okay, thank you.
So these, this site has some history to it. At one point, they did get approval to build, to redevelop Crab Hill. Mind you, the most recent planning application is what's up on the screen now. So just to orient you, the top of the screen would be looking east, right? So Crab Hill is here on the right-hand side, Coastal Reserve. They also proposed to have a road which ran all the way down the site into the Coastal Reserve to serve the unit down there. So this is the floor plan for Crab Hill here, and an elevation down below. So like Mr. Daniels had mentioned earlier, planning had initially refused this planning application. It was appealed, and the inspector sided with the objector, and the minister has signed it off. So these are just some pictures of the structure of Crab Hill here, just so you get an idea. So just to go back, so what has been proposed has been granted on appeal, and what Mr. Daniels is, I believe, talking about is right next door. You have 18 Sinky Bay Road, and you can notice how the tourism zoning has changed. I look back in the history of that. The reason why the neighbors have this chopped up tourism was because the building was there before the zoning, and the zoning was running right through the building. So for the plan, it was decided to put the whole building within the tourism instead of to extend it all. And since approval was granted for development within the coastal reserve, I think it would probably be reasonable for us to probably do the same thing once the building gets developed. That's what we've done for other applications. Once the building gets developed, planning can review it, and we could probably adjust the zoning then. That's what I'm.
Why not adjust the zoning now instead of waiting for the development to be done?
Because sometimes the development never happens.
That's your.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just ask for some clarification to make sure I understand a couple of points, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sure.
Is it correct that planning approval has been given for the building of the drawings that we saw for Crab Hole? Is that correct?
It has recently been approved on appeal in September.
Okay, okay. And Matthew, the last point that you were making, I'm
Except for
sorry.
and I can even go through the conditions. There are some conditions with that approval, but the road was not approved, but the Crab Hill development was.
And was the road not approved largely in connection with the fact that it's zoned currently coastal reserve, or at least part of it
Yes.
is?
Yes, because
Okay,
of the coastal reserve, yeah.
okay. And Matthew, the last point that you were making, I had a little trouble hearing, but I think I understood you to be saying what you're suggesting is that the building of the property, the development occur, and then the department take a view afterwards to rezone. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, because the building, things happen. The building might not get built. There could be changes done to the building, revisions done. Once the building is built, we can look at it and we can draw probably a better line for that, which is what was done for the neighboring house to the east, 18
So,
Tinky Bay Road.
so again, sorry if I have misunderstood something, but how does that building development go ahead in circumstances where the road wasn't approved? So what would be the access point to that property?
The road wasn't approved just for the coastal reserve area, so you can still get there. But what was the road? They wanted the road to go all the way up to the building for people who were elderly or people that were in wheelchairs. But that component was rejected by the inspector and the minister. So they can still get the road, but not that last part. I'll go back to not the final part.
So
Final
they,
extension within the coastal reserve.
Where is that? I see a line that's running through the lot. Is that the line where the
So,
coastal
so,
reserve?
so the way I see it is that if you see my cursor, you'll be able to enter the site. They'll be able to have all this road coming all the way down, and it'll have to stop around here, around in this area.
Okay.
and they wanted the road to go
All the
continue.
way, right, all the way up. Right now, this is it's a cycle only. One of the conditions was that this building would have to be a cycle only unit. Um, so that's just what was decided.
But isn't that sort of discriminatory against persons with disabilities and persons who are seniors? That they don't have proper access to the facility?
I think there's probably other things that could be done. There could be ramps done. It's that's what was the decision that was made by the inspector. It's pretty close. It's not.
Are there any other relevant conditions that were imposed that relate to the coastal reserve?
In order to protect the lands within the coastal reserve conservation area beyond the proposed development area, the proposed 42 safety fence, 42 safety fence shown on drawing number A2 shall be erected prior to the commencement of the building operations. The hereby approved conservation management plan shall be substantially implemented prior to the issuance of the certificate of completion and occupancy. A request for inspection of the planting shall be made in writing to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Prior to the commencement of building operations, the applicant shall undertake a skink survey to establish if the protected species is present on the site and if skinks are found, to take measures to relocate or protect them in consultation with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So those are the ones that are related.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any more questions.
Okay, Mrs. Daniels, do you have any other comments you would like to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a fair assessment that was given with respect to the conditions. Obviously,
Was it the handicap?
yeah, sorry, when I say a fair assessment of the conditions, meaning all the conditions of development have been properly laid out. We obviously will undertake to fulfill all of those. But as what has been raised is a concern to us, we didn't understand the narrative as to the roadway. We would do everything to design a roadway. We don't want to have a concrete structure. That's not our vision or goal. When we even discussed the particular area, the one question was, well, what happens if we had a guest that was disabled? What happens if we had a guest that was wheelchair bound? What if we had a guest that was senior? Or like ourselves, we have 3 young children, so we're used to pushing wheelchairs around. I mean, wheelchairs, strollers around. Forgive me, but you know, I mean, once a man, twice a child in some ways, right? So just looking at the potential development, the narrative that okay, there's this tourism zone line. One could arguably have some stones and pavement on the tourism part, but not have so that somebody's not slipping off of the slight hill, but not be able to drive up. It's just a bit awkward. While I certainly appreciate the need to protect coastal and definitely do everything to ensure that we protect the habitat, that's why we were committed. Kim's done a large amount of research in relation to the issue of potential skinks. She's looked at the natural habitat. She's gone through everything with the aerial shots to look at everything from the foliage that the creature eats to the type of rock that they live in and how you could distinguish between our area of the headlands and neighboring parts of the land. Even from a tourism perspective, if there were skinks, one of the things that we tried to present was that this would be one of the first places, if not the only place in Bermuda on the mainland, that one could stay in a tourism accommodation if they existed, and we were able to work with the necessary stakeholders and partners to relocate and bring back where we could actually make claim to the ability to be in that space. But certainly the considerations that we're looking for, it's not predicated on a desire to utilize that whole square footprint into development. We have a very quaint vision in mind that we want to fulfill, but we wanted to have the tourism zoning just so that we had consistency and be able to address, for example, that issue with the roadway in the future without having that particular stumbling block.
Yeah, the road that we have presented was designed by our conservation management designer, David Cox, and he created a road that's partial grass. So we never ever intended to do anything harmful on the coastal reserve property. But our intention was, yeah, handicapped children and just being able to do a turnaround. But I'm still concerned about having a handicapped tourist. Having the permission to develop that property is going to be awesome, but to have to reject someone who's in a wheelchair is not going to be something I'm going to want to do. So if we did get the zoning changed, I would actually look at putting something so that we can have access for someone who's handicapped. That's still a concern of mine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right. Okay, that's it, and we'll deliberate. The next case is FWD 0070-19, and it's Lot 6A Rec Road. Settle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
This is case FWD 0070-19, and it is Lot 6A Rec Road, Sands. The issue is reconfigure our agricultural reserve. For the department is Matthew Trott with Tommy Sinclair from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and the objector is Krista Rodriguez and Germano Patello. Ms. Rodriguez.
Good afternoon.
And you have to speak a little loud.
Oh, sorry, not to project. Okay, so I've just handed out the rebuttal, the zoning objection diagram that we submitted with our rebuttal. This was also included in the original objection application. So we're hoping this one is pretty straightforward, where it involves no loss of no loss of agricultural land, just taking the triangular portion up at the top of the lot and shifting it over to this area next to the existing agricultural zoning. And the reason is that the shape of the agricultural is restrictive to any potential future development. What we've done is we've taken the footprint of the house on the lot to the north, which is number 17 Rec Road, and we've put that onto this site so that you could see that it would end up into the agricultural zoning area if we were to do a similar design. And what the department advised was that they do have the discretion to allow encroachments into the agricultural area if development restrictions are in place like this. And we think that that approach is something that will lead in the future to loss of agricultural land. Whereas if it's shifted right now, then there's no loss of the total area of agricultural land on the site, just a repositioning of it.
That's your piece.
Yes.
Mr. Trott?
Okay, so I'll just run through exactly where this site is. So it's up in Sands, Somerset Bridge. Pitching post is on the corner here. Come all the way down Rec Road, make a left, and it's this lot which is outlined in red here. So this is just a close up of it, so you can see that it's residential too. So it's a residential 2 area. To the south, you have park. you have some space over here for development. It's not a regular shape, but it could, you know, you could put a house there. Um, this is 2012 aerial of the site, and these are the plans that you have in front of you. So Jennifer should be able to see it. This is the house that they're showing here is a neighboring house. They just wanted to give you an idea of what they could possibly do or they cannot do, because right now there's the ag reserve there. So they're proposing to swap it down in the corner. We haven't supported it. We've consulted with the agricultural officer who said that the agricultural, you will be losing the agricultural value in the corner. It's significantly less. So we didn't support it because we thought that it wasn't a fair trade based on our consultation with DNR, and that was really the main reason. We still think that there's enough space to put a building there, and we do have policies within the plan that would allow for the building to be built within the setbacks of the agricultural reserve, and perhaps even into the reserve itself. But that hasn't been tested yet, so we haven't supported it. That's why we have not supported it so far.
Okay, just a question for clarity. The area that they're looking for the land swap,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it. So what was your take on it, Tommy?
So if you can go back to the, I guess the aerial photo, maybe you might kind of show it. So you can kind of see the hatched area is where the agricultural land is. Now there's a bunch of mature trees there, but it is a relatively flat area. With the proposal of taking that top section off and moving it down there, you can see this area here is where you're talking about taking that and putting it down there. But that's all trees. And in addition to that, going along there, if I'm not mistaken, are you familiar with the property? You've been walking there?
Sorry.
So it's it's a walking trail up in those trees, and it's a bit of a rocky bank that goes up into a walking trail. So you're not, all you're doing is taking in name maybe taking agricultural reserve and putting it there, but it's not really agricultural reserve. It's not an agricultural quality as such as it stands now or as it exists now. And so you're not trading like for like. You're just trading. It's kind of just trading all an area as such, as opposed to trading into a like for like amount. And that's why it just, I couldn't see it as a good trade-off.
Go back to. So the area that you're talking about, Mr. Sinclair, is you saying that where the trees? You said there were just trees in there.
Yeah. So this bit here, you have a look at this hatch mark there, and then if you go back to the aerial, sorry, there's that same hatch bar, and this is that area there. So that had that white, that yellow strip there.
So what is it?
Sorry, guys, I can't see what you're talking about. So if you could do it.
Oh yeah, you might be able to do it on the mouse, perhaps.
So you see the agricultural reserve, the hatch portion. So it's this area up here, which they're proposing to shift down in this corner over here.
And my question,
which is trees.
And my question is, how is that area zoned? That is currently.
Right now, this area in the corner is just zoned residential 2.
I asked the question and I put it out there, was it a like-for-like swap in regards to the land area in question? So, and what Mr.
Yeah.
Sinclair was saying, you have that upper area. The proposed area, it's a woodland area with rocky outcrop and pathway running through. So,
Yeah, so it's you can switch it over and you will have the same amount of agricultural land, but it's not true agricultural land. It's just agricultural land in name. But that swap, the area that's being suggested as a swappable area is not comparable to the land that's being swapped out.
So it's not comparable in size, and it's not comparable in
No,
quality.
Size-wise, it very may. I haven't done all the figures. It's probably
Size-wise, it is.
Size-wise, it is. So your only issue is the quality of whether it could be agricultural or not.
That's right. As it is now, I think the gentleman, just verified that it is a walking trail. It goes up a slight rocky bank, and you can't see it, but it is quite a scenic little trail that is cut all through the woods there. But to use it for agriculture purposes, I don't see that happening.
But if they planted fruit trees, banana trees, the trees are already.
Yeah, no, those trees are. I'm not sure what they are, but they're probably. It would take some clearing. If that's what they may want to embark on and produce a future plan on that by clearing that land out, that might be workable. But as it is now, it's not a trade-off as far as like for like land.
Okay. Any other comments?
Sure. I'm finding it hard to believe the argument of it can't be arable because there are trees there. Or I could believe your argument for it not being arable because there are trees there. And the reason I say that, the swap that we would like to make has trees, as you can see. It has many trees and some of the most mature trees on the site. So your argument of saying you can't do it because trees are there should go the other way and say we could do it because trees are there. So let's get rid of it because trees are there.
But
and the other point is if it's just in title that it's arable and it's not used, then that argument should be used for the entire site. It's just arable, but it's not really arable, as you said.
No, I didn't say that.
It's not being used as arable.
That doesn't mean it's not arable. It's not being used as arable.
Okay, so by your argument, what would be arable? Your argument of trees, what would be arable right now on the site?
All the flat area that's there. I mean, what you're seeing there is a lot of trees, and so it's very bushy looking down on top of it, but there's still a lot of flat land there. And I agree, there are a lot of trees, a lot of I want to say there are probably some big cedar trees there that have been allowed or have been grown. I don't know how old
Cedars,
they are.
avocados.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so avocados are fine there.
Something.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff is agricultural, is arable. But the stuff that is growing up in the side, it is not. I mean, I would love to meet you up there and we can walk through it.
So, sure, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's not for now.
But the argument of trees are there and it can be arable or good quality arable. How can it be good quality arable if it's full of trees in the arable? I don't get that.
Really, gentlemen, you should be making your case to the panel because we are the ones who's going to have to make a decision.
Sure.
So you really got to convince us that.
Yes, I cannot see the argument that because there are trees there, it's not good arable. But where the trees are on the arable, it's good arable. It's very confusing to me. Now, we know for a fact that any land could be made into arable, even if it has rocks. Shift the soil, till it, improve it, fertilize it. You could always bring it up to arable quality, and you could improve the quality.
I agree.
That's what farmers do. But the other point I'll make is that those trees are there, yes. There's a walking trail there, yes. On private land, put there by the owner.
Yeah.
He could very well just take it away because it's zone R2. There's nothing that says those are protected. So to make that argument, I don't think it's a strong argument.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I just think that those trees that you're talking about in that walkway are not food producing trees. They are trees. They could be a number of
Okay,
different scrub trees, but
Point
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Jennifer?
I don't have any more questions, thanks.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's yours?
Yeah,
Is the Gilberts outside?
Yes, Larry's just bringing them in, and Matthew, yeah, you can see Matthew and Tommy are staying, and the Gilberts are just being brought in.
Good afternoon. Okay. You ready, Mrs. Gilbert?
I believe I was told I can.
For the record, I'll do some introductions. My name is John Payne, and I'm the chair of the tribunal. Along with me is Carlos Amaral. And on Cisco WebEx is Jennifer Howard. We have been appointed by the minister to hear this matter. For the department is Matthew Trott, along with Tommy Sinclair from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Also in the room are Tamsin Dorian and Larry Williams, who are our technical advisors, and Mandy Shaler, who is our IT consultant. You take your mouth when you speak.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, when you speak. Can you say who you are?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jacinth Gilbert, and this is my husband, Stacy Gilbert, Alan Stacy Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert is blind, but he wanted us to present our case before you because we had an objection to the ruling that the task force had submitted.
Mrs. Gilbert, can you raise your voice because we have some mics, right? So they're non-movable.
Oh, okay.
So if you project your voice, then
Okay.
you should also know that you are live on YouTube.
Okay.
So whatever you say is going to be held against you.
Okay.
Anyway, proceed. It's your case.
Did you want to go first, or you want me to?
You.
Okay. So I presented you with some paperwork, just as supporting evidence for our case. Further to a letter dated February 3rd, 2020, in reference to the property, which is lots 3A and 4A Tribe Road, number 6 on Spring Benny Hill in Sands Parish. You can see a copy of that listed, both number 8 and number 9, to give you a visual of the area in question. And the 2 lots on page 9, basically that supports, it's just an aerial visual of the lots that we will be discussing. So Mr. Gilbert, which is my father-in-law, Stacy's father, who was a war vet, he is now deceased. He purchased 2 lots of land from original lots that were created from the will of Mr. Rupert Simmons in 1970. It was then zoned high density. When Mr. Gilbert, working with Bermuda Caribbean Engineering Consultant, tried to subdivide the property into 6 lots for his children, you can see that listed at number 3 of the supporting documentation provided. The plan was to subdivide the property into 6 lots. It was complying with the zoning of 6 houses per acre per planning zone residential 1. Again, that will be on number 4, page 4 of the paperwork provided. That basically tells you how many houses you can have per lot. They were notified that the property was used as residential for agricultural purposes. That is on page 5, where Bermuda Caribbean, representing Mr. Gilbert, was doing the submission on his behalf. Page 5 and page 6, and I will basically focus on those pages with my submission. This was an objection to the draft of 1983 development zoning. There was particular attention to the planning history section of the submission. An application to subdivide the property in August 1978 was submitted and amended in November 1978, following discussions with the technical officers and the department who were prepared to support the proposal. So if you go to page 6, which was submitted by Bermuda Caribbean, you will see under the planning history section, it says that Mr. Gilbert owned 2 abutting parcels and that were originally 10 lots created by the will of Rupert Simons. Over the years, the majority of those 10 original lots had been further fragmented into smaller lots. In August 78, the application was submitted to the Department of Planning to subdivide Mr. Gilbert's property in accordance with its then zone of high density. The design of the subdivision was amended in November 1978, following the discussion with the technical officers of the department who were prepared to support the proposal. In January of 79, a petition of objection suddenly appeared from the neighboring property owners. This had the effect of completely thwarting the progress of the application, and was substantially abandoned. It is an interesting fact on record that in 1978, at the time Mr. Gilbert's application was submitted, no part of his property was recorded on the Department of Agricultural Records as being or even having been used for agricultural purposes. Inexplicably, between the submission of Mr. Gilbert's application in August of 78 and August of 79, the Department of Agricultural Records were altered and an arable designation inserted on this property. Now, based on that, this basically forms a foundation for our objection, because when Mr. Gilbert originally purchased the property, he did not purchase it based on what the density ruling was. that was part of his decision for purchasing this property. And his intent was to subdivide it for his 6 children. Had he known that this property was basically under this particular type of zoning, I don't believe he would have purchased it with the intent of handing it down to his children. Going back and forth with Bermuda Caribbean, Bermuda Caribbean and planning, Mr. Gilbert was also advised to change the roading of accessing the property. Mr. Gilbert had to make a road to access the property. He had to go through the planning department because it was deemed arable. However, when the road was made, the content was white sand and rock. We're trying to understand how the Morgan's Point development which was arable, would have had a road access created through a garden property. And our particular property, the type of soil quality that is there is far from the quality of another location. With the assistance of Bermuda Caribbean, one of the other things that they proposed, just so you can get an understanding, on page 10, they also submitted or assist us in submitting some additional information. The lots are long in configuration relative to their width, such as the northern area and the site comprise of steep southeast facing hillside with a valley bottom on the southern area. One lot to the east is a condominium development. It's the Vistas, with the townhomes located in the valley. This lot does not have an agricultural reserve zoning in the draft plans. Further to the east is the Royal Gardens Lane with a similar number of townhomes developed on the southeast side, southeast facing hillside. This lot does have an area designated agricultural reserve conservation area. We submit that the Vistas development complies fully with the design selection of the draft plan as set out in Chapter 9. The buildings of the Royal Garden Lane does not comply with the policy DSN.6 or DSN.13 of the draft plan. This is due to the steepness of the land and the restrictions imposed by the Agricultural Reserve Conservation Area. So basically, our request is to have the property revert back to its original zoning of high density, so we could basically fulfill what we originally purchased the property for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump?
Can I maybe just ask if we can have some guidance, if there's anything that we can do with regard to Mr. Gilbert in when may having the discussions to assist him following along?
Is there anything you need, Mr. Gilbert?
No, it's fine, I can hear.
He said he's fine, as long as he can hear.
Okay, we just need to make sure we're giving verbal cues and not
Yeah.
pointing.
You're good, you're good. Yeah, very good.
His ears are good.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so I will, I'll just go through exactly where this is. So it's the address is actually, Tribe Road number 6, Sands. Do you know, so it's up in Sands off of Spring Bank, and you have to come, so if you start here, you come all the way back. And it's these 2 lots, which is outlined in red. So you can see that it's within a residential 1 neighborhood, which is the highest density zoning that is within the draft Bermuda plan. And you can see that there are some conservation areas within the area, within this location. I'll just give a zoomed in picture. So as was shown before, these are the two lots, lot 3A and 4A, very similar in size and similar in terms of the agricultural reserve overlay. So it looks like this whole area used to be used for farming at one point, you can sort of see. Here's an aerial, a 2012 aerial of the site. And it's not in the best conditioning. It's got a lot of overgrown trees, of invasives, Mexican Papyrus Pride, Indias, things like that. Storage and industrial equipment there. Both are vacant, right? But I did want to, so in 92, in the 92 plan, it was pretty much zoned what it is now. It had a residential zoning and it had an agricultural overlay zoning. That was there in 1992. It's the same case today. However, in the early 2000s, a planning application was submitted for one of the lots, and 6 dwellings was approved on the lot without any of the development within the setback of the agricultural reserve. So I just wanted to show you some of the plans for that. So this is for one of the lots here. You can see the building A, building B. Tribe Road number 6 is to the right-hand side of the screen. And you can see the agricultural reserve here. There's a road that leads up through the agricultural reserve to the buildings which were approved by planning. This was the development. This is just for one of the lots. I'm just showing you this just to demonstrate that it is possible to get a building on the site. And here are some of the floor plans. So it's a pretty extensive building that was approved by planning. This is just to show you the cross section. Now the site is not flat. It does have a grade to it. So you can see here that you can build within the site. And this is the type of design that Department of Planning would hope to see on such lots. Some elevations. So I do hear what the objector is saying. I just want to make the point that it's been zoned agricultural reserve for a long time, since at least 92. And it is possible to build on the site. If it was going to be subdivided, that have to go through a subdivision application. But through this process, we're just dealing with the zoning of the site. So although it's not the greatest space right now for growing things or amenity and everything, we do believe that it can be remediated and made into a nice area for growing, if that was what they intended, but for at least for amenity purposes. And so that's why we haven't supported it. This was for the last plan. There was an objection to it, and it was also denied by the Department of Planning because they thought, at that point as well, that the agricultural reserve should be retained.
What was the objection?
At the last plan?
Yeah,
to remove the agricultural reserve.
The owners wanted to remove the agricultural reserve. Yeah. When you said you used the word objections, I thought you meant somebody in the neighborhood also objected.
No, sorry. when we were reviewing the last plan,
Mm.
um, there was an objection submitted, very similar to this one, and it wasn't supported by the department.
And that is high density area?
Yes, residential
Residential
one
one.
is the highest density of the area.
Jokingly, if you start to plant there, somebody's gonna do night farming. Okay, go ahead, continue.
So yeah, I mean that's why we haven't supported it, because we're trying to retain the ag, and we think that there's enough space to build a house. That one that I showed you had 6 dwellings in it. That was just for one lot.
Any comments, Mr. and Mrs. Gilbert?
Yeah, I think,
Stacy, I know you have a soft voice, so
yeah. Oh,
can you
it's
take your
not-
mask? Can you take
yeah.
your mask off
I think-
so while you're speaking?
I think it's 2 tanks already built up there, dug up there.
Mhm.
And the property that we want to clear is really arable here. When my father bought it, the person that sold it to him said it was not arable. None of it was arable. And then when he went to planning, the person that planning showed him some pictures of what he could build up there. And that's why he said, I'll subdivide it and give it to his children. And I don't know where they're getting all this, what they're saying, that it should be arable. If my father bought, he said he would never bought that property if it was arable. He told me personally that he would never bought it. And the people that sold it to him was his friend. And this friend would have said, okay, whatever, whatever. My daddy would never bought it. So he went to planning. He went to planning. Planning gave him some people, some buildings that he could put down there. Couple properties a little further there, down got the built houses coming straight down the house in that property, right down to the one with the bottom of the road. And my daddy could have did that there. So no, I want to subdivide it for his children. And when he gave it to Bermuda Caribbean to do it, they sent him a letter saying, no, Mr. Gilbert, it's inarable. Why didn't planning didn't give that letter to my father before he sent it to Bermuda Caribbean to pay them to do something that they couldn't do? That don't sound right to me. Y'all planning is everything. Planning's got it on file. Who even put it in arable? But they're not saying my daddy has never seen that letter. That's why he went to Bermuda Caribbean to subdivide it.
Okay, okay, thanks. I think we understand. Do you have one more point, Mrs. Gilbert?
Yes, in reference also to what he said, I presume that the procedures that normally are followed when property is being rezoned, that it's either made public in newspapers or whatever facility, whatever methods they use, or they would send a letter to the owner of the property saying this is the case. One of the email was also sent to Ms. Pereira from Bermuda Caribbean on our behalf, and one of the things that were in question, he said, taking the soil quality into consideration should be fundamental in determining whether any given parcel of land should be designated as agricultural reserve. It is ironically, it is not until the 12th paragraph of the department submission that the extremely poor quality of the soil on this area that is designated agricultural reserve is admitted. This ground alone should be justification for the removal of agricultural reserve designation from this parcel of land.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard? No questions?
You mean then, sir?
Okay. Okay, we have, panel have no further questions. Thank you very much for coming in.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Okay, yeah, one
It's just, when you said that it was never agriculture, or they thought it was agriculture, does that mean it wasn't zoned as agriculture or was never farmed? Because I seem to recall going up to there when it was actually farmed. So it has been farmed. But are you saying though it was farmed, it wasn't zoned as agriculture at one time when this was purchased? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, it was high density.
So it has been farmed.
We have
Yeah.
never,
We never farmed it. We never farmed it. We are the owners of it. We never farmed it. And if you see his deeds do not say it's an arable on it. You wouldn't say it's arable on his deeds. How can you buy somebody's property and you buy it and you write a deed and it doesn't have it on it, but you have to steal every planet? Something is wrong.
I just seem to recall that I've been to that place before, where when it was being farmed, and I wasn't sure if I don't know, it just
Mr. Gilbert.
Mr. Bean. I thought Alan Bean never farmed it.
And whose property is it? Whose property is it?
Okay. The other option too, I think, don't they have aerial photos from over the years too that
Right.
you
Yes.
could always pull as a reference point up as well?
1941, 1970.
Yeah, because you've seen those in other cases, so we could also see that as a visual to say yay or nay.
and actually what I've submitted to you, it's also in this on pages 11 and 12, where I believe it was referring to aerial photos.
1941.
Yeah.
Yes.
This
paragraph. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilbert.
One more question. He said it all looked like forest. I have an excavator up there. I was getting ready to clear it off. Planning told me, somebody in planning said to me, you can't use your excavator because you all lost your permit for that, the building. So I didn't clear it. I said, okay, well, I can't use the excavator. Let it go. So I let it go up. My excavator is still there and it can't do it. It can't clear off that property. I said, okay, I'm gonna let them see it. Let them see what they tell me I can't do. And I'm seeing other people's property being cleared up. And I'm sure, maybe I'm not sure, that they didn't go to planning. They cleared it off and they're actually gonna sell it. But I knew they probably went to planning, I'm just saying that. But I know that place could have been cleared up. I cleared it up to dig the 2 tanks up there. So I know I could still clear it up. I was gonna do it. No, you can't do it. You can't. I'm like, okay, my hands off. Then did somebody else say something? Sam, I did it. I was gonna do it. I'm still got the excavator out there.
But just a question, the 2 tanks, just so I can understand this, the 2 tanks that were built were pertaining to the planning permission you had for the 2 separate units on the 1 lot, correct?
No, the 2 lots.
No, but the plans that were shown, that was for one of those lots, correct?
Yeah. One, no.
The
2 lots. There's 2 lots, man.
Okay, no, I'm just asking.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
so the tanks that were done were for the approved development that you had initially on each of the lots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that
Okay,
took,
so
that
help
took
us
place
see
in
that
good,
that's what you- okay.
10 years ago maybe, or more, where the clearing took place. I remember the road going in. There was a big hole at the very bottom of the driveway, there, and, yeah.
And you read that there, what you said, the people gave me for the road. It was a road, and my father bought that property. It was a road down the bottom, straight across that property. And they're saying it's arable. I know before it went arable, my father actually drove on that road. And I drove on it too because I was in his car. And he showed me some stuff. We went down there, and I'm only about, I'll say 17 or 18 years old. And I still remember it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in, and we'll deliberate, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a lovely dinner. Thank you, guys.
All right.
I'm gonna go down there.
Ms. Gilbert, did you want any of these?
No, you can keep them.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Successful trucking business.
Yeah, I've never never seen that gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
I've crossed paths.
I'm in the forward here. He's a cricket or such a bridge. Okay, the last case.
What's with your tie today, Larry?
Sorry?
What's with the tie?
Oh, this is winter.
Winter time?
Winter comes in.
Oh, I see. Oh.
You're bringing Mr. Hollis in now, correct?
Mr. House is coming in. Yes, he is indeed.
I think his client is Mr. Scott, and I think he's coming in as well.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. 5 copies. Presentation. To whom should they go?
Okay, we are dealing with case number 0042-19, and it is the removal of part of agricultural reserve at 15 Beacon Hill Lane Sands. For the department, we have Matthew Trott with Tommy Sinclair from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And for the owner of the property is Mr.
Donald Scott.
Along with him is
Rudolph Hollis.
Rudolph Hollis. There has been a counter objection to the zoning, which is best, but they will be standing on their own written submission. I am John Payne, and I'm the chairman appointed by the minister for the draft Bermuda Plan 2018. Along with me is Carlos Amaral to my right.
Good afternoon. How are you?
And by WebEx is Jennifer Howard, who's the other panel member. In the room with us is Tamsin Dorian and Larry Williams, who are our technical advisors, and Mandy Shaler is our IT consultant. So, Mr. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members of the panel. The way we want to conduct this is Mr. Hollis, who's assisting the family in this process. He's an associate with Antessa's Architecture. He will do the main presentation, and I would like to be able to just make some concluding comments at the end of his presentation. And of course, if there are questions from the panel, we will be happy to oblige. Mr. Hollis? Thank you.
You can take your mask off when you speak.
Get used to this here. Well, good day, Mr. Chairman and members of the Tribunal and Department.
And you are going to have to project your voice because you're also present on YouTube, and also our other panel member needs to hear as well.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, we are here to verbalize Mr. Scott's objection or request, which was submitted on the 11 of the Development Planning. Now, we understand that you are here to hear his case for an adjustment to the boundaries of the agricultural reserve, to hear the Plan Department's position, and to make a recommendation to the minister. Not a status quo recommendation, not a recommendation based purely on facts, but a recommendation based on planning for Bermuda's sustainable growth to provide for the needs of Bermudian residents for the next 10 to 15 years. It's a quote taken from the planning document. If you consider that Mr. Scott as a compelling case, we expect fair and unbiased consideration. Now,
Whether
there's
whether he has a compelling case or not, you can expect fair and unbiased consideration.
Thank you. There are three grounds for our request. Firstly, Mr. Scott purchased this property in 1994. He anticipated that based on the 1992 planning statement, the lot size of 0.76 of an acre under the zoning would not only allow for his residence, but would be an investment for his children's home in the future. He did not envision that the arable land would prevent any further development or future development in perpetuity. The history of zoning changes and accommodations of encroachments upon protected areas in Bermuda supports such a belief. Whilst agricultural land was protected for agricultural use in 1992, see the purposes, which is part of the attachment you'll see. It states agricultural land includes arable land that is capable of cultivating and land that is capable of supporting a wide range of farming activities such as grazing, dairy farming, the breeding of livestock, regardless of the use to which the land is being put. Agricultural land is a valuable resource, and priority shall be given to protecting its integrity of the farm unit and encroachments onto the arable land and agricultural land. Now, whilst agricultural land was protected, Mr. Scott is not a farmer, and whilst he is not opposed to a home garden, he anticipated that he would be given consideration under paragraph 2.5 of the 92 plan. Notwithstanding the main house, since his lot was 5 times larger than the minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. This mathematically allowed for 5 detached buildings. Now, we recognize that the agricultural land conservation overlay takes up approximately half an acre. This is not possible under paragraph, section 11, which is also attached. So it would not be possible with the amount of agricultural land that is on that property. However, as a layperson, he would not have been able to appreciate that a garden in a high-density residential area will prevent further residential development for all time. Today, if Mr. Scott is not able to build a second dwelling on his lot, separate and independent from the homestead, he or his son will have to purchase an alternative property at today's market value. And the market value is approximately $1 million an acre, thereby defeating his original investment. Now, the conservation officer has no interest in Mr. Scott's property. Their objection to his request is based on their invested interest in the agricultural land. Therefore, we must look to find a fair medium between what they're looking for and what Mr. Scott's trying to achieve. The second ground for Mr. Scott's objection, this is a little more planning related. The request for an adjustment to the extent of the agricultural reserve is a sound planning and land use consideration. The general aim of the Bermuda Plan 2018 speaks to sustainable uses and development of land, effectively managing Bermuda's natural and built environment. Unfortunately for Mr. Scott, it appears that more emphasis is placed on protecting the natural environment and less on sound planning. Now, in 1965, when the first zoning plan was introduced, this would have been an undeveloped, this area would have been undeveloped. And as such, in 1974, when the legislation was written to protect arable land, the development needs would not have been an issue, and farming was an active industry during those times. Today, according to the 2019 Empowerment Survey, only 7 Bermudians listed farming as their employment status, and overall decline in persons involved in this industry. This is obvious by the number of fields that have been allowed to grass over. When you look at the zoning maps in the attachment, and reference Annex 2, today you see that this area is in residential 1, and part of the lot has an agricultural reserve overlay. You will also see that it is quite a dense area, with Mr. Scott's lot being approximately 4 times larger than Eric's property. You will also see that this site is at the end of the estate road, surrounded by a number of homes. You will see also that Mr. Scott's request for the development area is consistent with the character of the residential area. The development of the agricultural land in accordance with the plan would not be in character with the surrounding neighborhood. Specifically, to lease this area as a commercial agricultural use would not satisfy the requirements for a commercial use in the plan. I've copied that as an Annex 2 specification for commercial use. And this is due to its location and impact on this development in a residential area. Example, there's no direct access to a public road, the requirement. The noise from farming equipment, the smell of products and fertilizer, the sale of products would generate additional traffic. All this will have a negative impact on the estate road and the residential environment. And that's just the agricultural use. The keeping of livestock would have an even greater impact. The plan does speak to other environmental uses. And when you read what it says now in Annex 4 for in the most recent plan, it speaks to the agricultural use, but it also speaks to the plan's aim to conserve agricultural reserve areas, not just for the agricultural use, but also for their natural and aesthetic value, and providing a visual and amenity buffer between and within development areas. Priority shall therefore be given to protecting the integrity of the agricultural reserve area, and the presumption shall be that development is not permitted except in exceptional cases. So it's transitional. No. Sorry.
Mr. Hollis, you really had 5 minutes to do your presentation.
Yeah.
I'm giving you some flexibility.
Oh,
So can you can you
wind
hit the high points for us?
I can wind it down.
Mr. Chairman, I have to say we were not given that guidance that the presentation time would be limited to 5 minutes.
It was in the procedures that were emailed over.
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
The whole, this whole hearing,
Okay, no problem.
presentation by both sides should take 15 minutes. So that's why we insist that documentation be circulated beforehand.
Okay.
But go ahead.
We'll go through it. Okay. So basically, you see where this is a shift in the purposes and aim of the agricultural land, suggesting that the plan is looking to achieve a public benefit other than the protection of the quality and content of the arable land. Now, we recognize that this is a developed residential 1 area that benefits from open space. However, should it be Mr. Scott's responsibility to provide a public benefit at his own expense and also development opportunity? Section 8 of the Development and Planning Act gives the minister the power to acquire land in support of a development plan zoning. As such, given the status of Mr. Scott's property in the residential 1 area, he should be entitled to just compensation if he's unable to develop in a manner consistent with the residential 1 zoning and the character of the residential area, purely to protect the agricultural land. So Mr. Scott's proposal is a sound planning consideration, a compromise. He will be providing a home for his family that is consistent with the residential area and providing a community benefit with the remainder of the agricultural land, not for commercial farm use, or perhaps a manageable home garden or open space. This is encouraged by the agricultural reserve regulations. And lastly, and I'll read through this quickly, in 2014, Mr. Scott submitted an application for a detached cottage for his son and his family. The mathematical calculation suggested that he had 14,819 square feet of developable area. However, When taking into consideration the infrastructure, parking, cesspits, and private outdoor amenity space requirements of the plan, the unencumbered residential area could not accommodate a second detached dwelling. The application was rejected, and it was suggested that he could do an internal conversion or an addition to the existing house. The subsequent appeal was also denied in favor of protecting the agricultural reserve for a possible small commercial use for home garden. Mr. Scott wishes to assist his son in home ownership, which is a dream of most Bermudians. His lot is large enough to realize that dream and to provide for a home garden in accordance with one of the plan's main agricultural reserve aims. If he cannot receive favorable consideration on the appeals process, the tribunal's objectivity and nonpartisan consideration is his best option. It is noted the ministerial powers, as have been demonstrated in a number of other decisions where developments have been allowed in conservation areas for political or economic reasons. The average Bermudian should receive the same consideration if his request is reasonable. In light of the many accommodations at the ministerial level, this discussed reasonable and fair request should not be denied. In summary, here, for the reasons stated, Mr. Scott's request is reasonable and consistent with the historic development trends that have defined home ownership in Bermuda.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you a comment. I gave you an opportunity, but I want them to do their presentation and I'll allow you to comment after.
And that's fine, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Truck?
So I'll just go through exactly where the site is. So it's Beacon Hill Lane up in Somerset. Come along down. It's a lot which is outlined in red. You can see that it's in a residential 1 neighborhood, but there's also some residential 2 just to the north and to the east. So this is just a zoomed in close up of the site. So it's a large site and it has a large overlay zone of agricultural reserve on there. Again, this is a 2012 aerial. It's been used for farming historically. It's been considered by DENR to have very good arable reserve, given 5 out of 5 value. Just want to run through these. This is the proposal which was submitted, which I think you have in front of you. The objector is proposing to remove the portion which is hashed in red, so that an additional dwelling can go there. This is the site plan for the planning application which was submitted and was refused. The building was put it was refused because it was proposed completely within the agricultural reserve. And here are some pictures of the site. So the department is not in support of it. We would like to say that there are policies within the plan that would allow for some development to go within the setback of the agricultural reserve and potentially even within it. That wasn't tried. The proposal was completely within the agricultural reserve. Like was mentioned by Mr. Hollis, we do believe that there's area on the site for additional development, and we do believe that it's in the best interest to preserve the agricultural reserve in its entirety, and that's why we're not in support. We're not in support of it.
That's it. Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a few comments to make in closing, and they focus on two central issues that we think is before the tribunal for its consideration. One, the issue of sufficient space for further development outside of the arable overlay on the lot. And number two, the public policy issue, finding a fair balance, a win-win solution between the development rights of a landowner and the forced preservation of part of that privately held land for the public good. My belief is that items that are designated as the public good should be supported by the public purse and not by a private purse.
And you know that it's not an issue that we can deal with here.
Well, it's a point of the argument, sir, and there are places in other areas where that point will continue to be made. Thank you for that guidance, Mr. Chair. With respect to the space issue, the planning department says that there is sufficient space to build another dwelling on unencumbered residual land. We consider that the department miscalculated. We also note that while the department recognized the lot was irregular in shape, and you see on the map there, it did not grant any leeway in accordance with AGR 4, part of the plan where size or configuration of the lot limits the extent of further development. And again, a review of the site plan will see. You see where the main house is, it's shaded in brown there. There's no parcels of contiguous adjacent land where you can fit another private dwelling within that space. The space that's available to the north, it's a triangular area that's very difficult. To the south, there's a wedge of land between the property that's developed and the arable space that's underneath. And to the east and west, there are setbacks that you need to accommodate when you're developing a lot. So that leaves no real space for the siting of a separate development. And that was the main reason for the family's request. After being turned down for building upon them, we said, okay, now we need to go and see if we can get an approval on rezoning part of the arable land. We're not against having arable land. We support it. We understand its importance. But again, I think there's a need in public policy to protect or to balance the rights of a property owner to have development rights for their own use, and the need for the community to have some benefit from what is a good piece of property for the production of fresh produce in Bermuda. And it has been used for that purpose since we purchased it in 1994, right up until about 2010. The children are getting older, and we look for opportunities to help them get onto the real estate ladder. So this limitation, again, as I said, that's the real reason that we supported, was sent in the application. And in looking around at the history, we see that in large commercial interests, there have been accommodations. For instance, Pink Beach that developed on arable land back in 2015. And most recently, the strip of road that went through a major agricultural plot in Southampton to assist the Caroline Bay development. Our view is that ordinary citizens, like myself, for instance, should receive similar consideration. We think that the tribunal is in a place to provide this review and decision. And Mr. Chairman, we think fair is fair, and that's all we need to say at this moment. And we'll await the decision of the tribunal on this particular case.
Any comments? Oh, no, I'm good, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Deliberate.
And I have one further question.
Yeah.
What is the expected timeline to completion of your report?
My report.
Yes.
It's
not the minister's decision.
It's not my report you have to worry about. It's the minister's staff. I can, as you well know, and you know better than I do, that I can give the minister a report tomorrow, and he may take 2 years from now before he gives it.
I understand that part of it, Mr. Chair.
So as soon as there have been over 200 objections.
Yes.
We're waiting through them now. Hopefully we will be finished before the end of the year, the hearings, and then we get down to writing the report. So my time frame is very early in the new year.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, Tribunal,
Okay.
for referring to our case.
Mr. Trump, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sinclair.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
That's it, Jonathan?
Jonathan's,
All right,
just what's
Jonathan,
happening.
Richie Bassett was the last farmer.
To farm out in there?
Yeah, he said probably 3 years ago.
All right. Yeah, it looked pretty good what it was over
No,
there.
no, he says, in fact, with Richie, he says it's the best piece of farmland in Somerset that he has. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
Tommy.
all right.
They said what's up?
He did say what's up, yeah.
I thought I had a few great, hey, we had a lot of gray hair before this. What are they trying to do to us? Oh, man. Yeah.
Mandy, we're still live, correct?
Yes, we are. Only do one thing at
It's
a
just-
time. Would you like me to end the stream?
Yes, please.
Okay. Here's signing off.